If I could share one thing about foster care, it'd be the connection that you make with the child over the period of time that you're fostering them until they go home or you adopt them.
There are too many kids and not enough families to host those kids. And these kids, they really need someone like a loving, caring family to care for them and keep them safe.
You know, I've come to find out that I'm kind of like a lot of prospective like foster parents, foster dads especially out there, where my wife talked to me for several years about adopting, fostering, and I always had an excuse or a reason not to do it. You know, I'm too busy, I'm too old. I mean, always an excuse.
So what made me want to be a foster parent is, honestly, it's something that my husband and I had talked about for a long time. We just always felt like this was for us, how God wanted us to build our family, and that was just more how our path was supposed to go. Instead of, you know, the more traditional ways of having a family, that just seemed like the path for us.
What made me want to be a foster parent was a just deep down calling from the Lord and desire to help the most vulnerable and to really be a part of something bigger than just my job and the small circle of people that I interact with on a day-to-day basis.
Adoption's always been a really big part of his family history, with a lot of cousins and a brother, and just seeing the impact that that had on not just the kids but the entire family unit, and just how much love there was in that. We think a lot about how easy it would have been to miss out on God's blessings.
The hardest thing about foster care is probably the same thing that makes it worth it, is the attachment that you build with the child. You want to be attached because that's what they need, and the family unit is supposed to be attached, right? So it also is the hardest part because the goal of foster care is reunification. So when the child is reunified, if they're reunified, then they do leave your family, and it's like losing a family member, and it's pretty hard.
The hardest thing about foster care is watching your kid go home.
Watching the child leave.
When we had to say goodbye.
Eventually I just kind of like realized that, you know, these kids that are in foster care, it's not convenient for them either, but they just need somebody to love them. And I think that's when I reconciled that in my own heart and got on board with my wife. And I mean, that's really what made me want to be a foster parent.
What makes it worth it is like spending time with the child and watching him grow up.
There was a lot that made it worth it. Watching him progress and grow over the year. When he came to us, he was a completely different kid than when he left. We were able to introduce him to the Lord, plant some seeds in his life that hopefully he'll be able to take with him forever.
One of my personal verses is about, it's when Peter and Jesus are having a conversation after Jesus' resurrection, and he's asking him, do you love me more than these? Do you truly love me? Feed my sheep. And I take that very literally, and I make a lot of food and feed a lot of sheep. But really that to me is like, no, take care of my children, and we do, and we love it.
Even though he's gone and we're still grieving and missing him, we know that we will forever, eternally be a part of his life as we continue to pray for him daily, and one day in heaven, we can't wait to rejoice with him.
My brothers and I were in foster care for 5 years before we were adopted.
If there was one thing I could say to foster parents, it would be thank you for opening up your home.
Thank you for giving kids a chance.
We love because he first loved us.